Hello. So it's Tuesday, a bit earlier than normal. I'm thinking I might get an early night, so I thought I'd pop on now um, to answer any questions. So I'm more than happy to answer a couple of questions. Let me see if I can share. I don't know if I can actually. I'll just wait and see if anyone's there. Hi, say hi when you arrive if you're there. So I can see who's there. I'm here just to answer a couple of questions. Let's have a look. If I so if anyone's got any questions at all that they would like to ask, then please feel free. I'm just going to start by hi Sarah. I'm just going to start actually by just saying something. Sometimes when I'm working with people, I was going to say it's weird, but it's not weird. What I was going to say is that often people, I can have a day where the same thing comes up for like 3 or 4 different people. But actually, it's not that strange because, in a nutshell, we're all dealing with the same thing, whether it be relationships, whether it be parenting, whether it be anxiety, depression, is all amounting to the same thing, which is that we're experiencing it through our thinking and we're having symptoms and responses to what's going on in our heads. So actually, it's not a surprise at all, is it, that I have people coming up with the same questions. So one of the things I just wanted to point out to you today, whilst I'm waiting to see if anyone's got any questions for me, is sometimes if people are anxious or overwhelmed, they'll experience it in their tummy. Some people might get hot flushes. Some people might get cold and shaky. Some people might feel tired. Some people might feel on edge, like they've got more energy than they know what to do with. Some people feel sick. As I said earlier, some people might have tummy ache. And these are all physiological responses to us sending a message to our brain that we're in some sort of danger, or that we haven't got stuff figured out, and it's like we're trying to problem solve a problem that doesn't actually currently exist. It's just an illusion in our heads. So, what I want to say tonight is you need to listen to your body. If you have stomach ache, if you feel sick, if you feel shaky, your body is telling you something. But what happens is people fixate on what's happening in the body. So I've got tummy ache. Why have I got tummy ache? What does it mean? Have I got a bug? Is it cancer? Is it this? Is it that? And you're fixating then on the actual physical symptom, which then means that we are completely and utterly going into further anxious thinking because we're then wondering what's going on with our stomach, for example. When actually your stomach is just trying to tell you something, and it's different for everyone, but your stomach is telling you that you are overthinking way too much. So rather than fixating on why have I got tummy ache and what does that mean and how do I get rid of it and it's so annoying, it's more a case of going, oh, okay, so I've got stomach ache and actually that's likely to be an indication that I've got way too much overthinking going on. The way I liken it too, which might sound a bit random, is if you've got a smoke alarm in your house and you're cooking, well, this might just be me, but you're cooking something, usually if it's like a steak or a piece of toast or something that gets hot really, really quickly, the smoke alarm will often go off. And it's annoying. And then you stand in the hall or the kitchen or wherever with a tea towel wafting it to try and shut it up because it's irritating and it's like as if it's an inconvenience. Yet actually, if there was a fire in our house and the alarm went off, we wouldn't see it as an inconvenience. We would listen to it. We would get up and we would get out. Now, in fact, if it didn't go off, we'd be severely pissed off as to why did that alarm not go off? Why did it not work? So it's kind of like we can't have it both ways. So in the way that, yeah, we might have to put up with the alarm going off when we've got burnt toast, but that's because it's keeping us safe, then it's the same thing. You've got tummy ache, in a way, is keeping you safe. It is telling you that something needs to give, that you're off balance and that you need to settle back down and give yourself a break from trying to figure it all out, from getting caught up in the trap of thinking, trying to have everything figured out, because you know what, ultimately you can't figure anything out. what will be, will be. Okay, so let's have a look. Thomas has said, I've had a terrible few days. I'm still waiting for it to pass. Everything seems dark and frightening and gloomy. Well, it will if you're in that state of mind. You know, it's when you are in that low state of mind, that is the worst possible place to try and figure everything out, because you are only going to see it through almost like dark glasses, like not rose tinted ones, but very dark ones where things do seem gloomy and dark. So it's about being kind to yourself in the interim, doing things that you enjoy, being around people that you love, being around, having some sort of contact with other human beings. You know, this might sound daft, but I've even said before, if, you know, sometimes going into a shop and buying something and having a little interaction with someone behind the till is enough of a human connection to sometimes give us that little lift. Now, you know, when you are feeling low, it will always pass. It's not going to stay at that place. But as I said, it's much better to figure that stuff out once that passes. Let's have a look. So there's lots of angry faces there. I'm not sure which bit that was for, but let me know. Hi, Mohammed. Okay, so just waiting to see if anyone else has any questions. Look. Okay, so it's a bit slow on coming up with any comments if anyone's got any questions. Oh, bloody doorbell's going. I'm just going to get the doorbell because I've obviously gone out without keys. But yeah, let me know if you've got any questions. Oh, you get it, Mum. Thanks. I'm trying to think. How am I doing? I'm good, thank you. That's very nice of you to ask. I'm really good, yes. I am good. I am from the UK, yes. I am from Manchester in the UK. Why do professionals never take me seriously? What do I do? Okay. It's really difficult, this, because, you know, I would class myself as a professional in the sense that I'm a trained psychotherapist. And so all I can say is that I would never not take anybody seriously. I would always take somebody at face value with what they bring to me. And, you know, it's like that. So say, for example, I might have parents that come to me and say, my child gets... Don't know who was an angry face. I don't know either, but somebody was angry, Claire. Can't win them all. Yeah, so a parent might come to me and say, my child gets stomachache in the morning, and I know it's just because they're anxious, and so, you know, just trying to almost force them out of it. But actually, that stomachache is very real. Yes, it's created through the anxious feeling, and the stomachache is created through anxious thinking, but it doesn't mean that they're not experiencing it and feeling it. So actually, no matter what you take to professional, no matter what you discuss with them or say to them is happening for you, the very least that somebody should be doing is listening to what you've got to say and trying to understand what that's like for you. So I don't know, and I'm sorry that you know, if you feel like that, and I would just say go to a different professional. Like, you know, it's like anything, isn't it? There's always going to be people in certain professions that you don't either click with, or you don't like, or you don't agree with. But don't be afraid to go and see somebody else. So go and, you know, go to a completely different GP and ask to speak to somebody there, or go, if you've been given other professionals, just go back to the GP and say that you're not happy or whatever it is. So you've just got to keep doing, or ask them, you know, I would never be adverse to a professional, as a professional, for someone to say to me, like, I feel like you're not listening to me. And I would explore that with them, and it would probably be really helpful for us both, because, again, we can only do our best in any given moment. So for me, it might be that sometimes I might look like I'm distracted, or for that person might feel that I'm not listening. But all I can say is I will be doing my best. And actually, if they told me that, then we could look at, you know, why it seems like that and what I can do for them to feel like I'm listening more. So maybe bring it up with them, you know, maybe speak to them about it and say that this is how you feel, and see what comes of it there. They just tell you to take meds. Well, yeah, it's very difficult. I mean, again, if you don't want to be on medication or you don't believe you're on the right medication or anything like that, go back to your GP and speak to them about it, because ultimately it's down to you. But it's a difficult thing with medication, because it's important that you don't just suddenly stop taking medication that you've been given. It has to be done properly with the doctor over time. So yeah, it says that you were meant to come and then somebody cancelled 10 minutes before the appointment. Well, that must be really frustrating. It must be really frustrating. And I would speak to somebody about it. Go back to your GP or go back to whoever and ask to speak to somebody senior and say, like, this is distressing for you, or whatever it is, or frustrating, or, and again, sometimes these things just can't be helped. But equally, you are allowed to be peed off about it. You're allowed to be annoyed by it. Of course you are. And who knows what I don't know what the reason is or anything like that. And it may be really valid. I'm sure if I think about over the years, I've probably had to cancel last minute on someone for some reason, and it would have been valid, but that doesn't mean that they couldn't be peed off about it. So yeah. So has anyone got any other questions that they want to ask? I don't know if a lot of you will have seen it and signed up. There's about half of the amount of people that can go on it that are already on it. It's an online free 1 hour session all about panic and anxiety. The link's on my page. If you just have a scroll through, you'll find it there. It's next Monday evening at 9:00 in the evening UK time, and I will just be explaining what happens mentally and physically when you have a panic attack, what it's all about, in the hope that the more people understand it, the less scared they are, and that sort of helps with the cycle of overthinking. So if that's of interest to anyone, then have a look. As I say, I think it's about 50% full at the moment. I have been asked by a few people if it'll be recorded. Unfortunately, it is. I won't be sharing a recording, and that's not because I'm being precious. It's because what I want to do on the live session is give people the opportunity to ask questions. So if people, for me, in order to be able to give people the opportunity to ask questions, I then want to be able to let them know that anybody outside of who's there at that time will not see it. So it's really to protect confidentiality for other people and give them a space to voice, or ask questions. So that's the reason why, really. I will try and do more in the future if I can, but yeah, so it won't be recorded, unfortunately. Thanks for answering me, though. No problem at all. Okay, so it's not looking like there's any questions. Hang on. Here we go. I keep having blips of anxiety. I suffer with quite intrusive thoughts. My question is, why does it keep coming back? The intrusive thoughts scare me and I worry they're warning signs of something else. Okay, so this is really, really common. And it's really interesting, your wording. I like this question. I think this will help a lot of people because this is so common. And I've experienced this myself as well. Intrusive thoughts. And then they go and then they come back. Why does it keep coming back? Well, do you know what? It's not actually that it keeps coming back. You will still have, at times when you're feeling okay, you will still have random, intrusive, crazy, irrational thoughts that pop in, but you're just not noticing them. You're just not holding on to them. So let's just think of an example. So say, for example, I was talking once to somebody who had watched a programme on Tourette's. And when they were watching the programme on Tourette's, they had an intrusive, really unhelpful thought that went, oh, imagine if I had Tourette's. Okay, imagine if I had Tourette's. Okay, full stop. Then when we're sometimes in a lower state of mind, or we've been overthinking for quite some time, we can very quickly go to a place of, what if I had Tourette's? What if that was me? Oh my God, what if I start shouting things out that, and I can't help myself? What it will change my life, it will do this, it will do that, and we layer on top of layer on top of layer. Now, those initial thoughts that come, where we could be watching a TV programme, we could be out and about, we could have the most random of thoughts. But if we're in a better frame of mind and we're not particularly anxious or stressed at that time and we've not been overthinking too much, we'll just ignore it and sometimes even laugh at it. Like I will sometimes have such irrational thoughts and it just makes me laugh because I just think, oh, it was a bit random. Where did that come from? So it's not that the thoughts go and then they come back. The thoughts are always there. It's more about how much value you give them, how much attention you give them, and how much you try and resist them, really. The more you try and resist them, the longer they will stay. So, people have fears of all sorts of things. And yet, we all have fears, and we might have a quick thought that comes in that we're scared of something, and then it will pass and go away. And we might be then thinking about what we're having for tea. Whereas if you're really heightened in that moment and you're kind of like overanalyzing every single thought that you have, you then might take it to that next level. Intrusive thoughts are scary. Of course they are. That's why they're called intrusive, because it's like they intrude on us. But again, all thoughts are neutral until we decide otherwise. All thoughts are neutral until we decide otherwise. So what it means is that the times where it feels like it's come back just tells me that you are giving it way more attention in those moments. Okay? And those thoughts are not a warning sign of anything. Those thoughts are just thoughts, and we will all have irrational, intrusive thoughts at times. So yeah, it's not that they've gone and come back, it's that you are noticing them, or you are giving them more value, or you are just in that frame of mind where you're overthinking a lot. But the only thing they're a warning sign of is that you are holding on to your thoughts at the moment, that you've got a lot of thinking going on. That's the only warning sign. Yeah, that's all they are. They're not something that's suddenly going to create into something different. Yeah. And what you'll do is, you will, oh, hi Melanie. No, it was because I was trying to share it onto the page, because I always say I'll share it on a Tuesday, but it won't let me do it on my phone for some reason. So I thought if you were there that you would do it, but I don't know when this has come up. Okay, Sarah, that's good. So yeah, so it's not a warning sign of anything major. It's not it's not that something's happening to you, you're going down some slippery slope. You've just got more thinking going on at that time than maybe you did a week previous, where they weren't as noticeable, or you weren't holding on to them or taking them to that next step and that next level and that next layer. It's just layering up of thoughts. It's like, sometimes I like to think of it as like when we've got loads of thoughts going on, it's like we're building this brick wall that just sort of separates us from everybody else. And then we feel like, thanks Melanie, then we feel like we're behind this wall and that we're stuck and we're in another world to everybody else. But we've just created that wall. So if you think about each brick as like a thought, instead of just having a few down there and then being able to see clearly over the top, it's like there's a brick and another brick and another brick, and it's all layered. And then suddenly we feel like we're so isolated and we're so almost at risk of losing the plot or something bad happening, but we're just completely and utterly stuck in thought. And if I just give you another little example before I finish off of that, it's a bit like, I can't remember, there was a coach, I can't remember which one it was, it might have been Michael Neal, but somebody was talking about sometimes when we're really overwhelmed and got a lot of anxious thinking going on, it's like we're in a room and somebody's just switched the light off, okay? Now, in that room, then, maybe it's not a very familiar room, the light's just gone off. Now, what you can do then is you can fumble around, you can try and find your way out, try and find the light switch, and people can fumble and get really overwhelmed and panicked, so like, get me out of this room now, get the light switch back on. And you can fall over and hurt yourself. Now, the thing is that light will always come back on. And we don't need to try and stumble our way out. So somebody else might just sit there and wait till that light comes on. And this is what happens with our mood. And the way that human nature works is that we always will reset. We will just reset. So even when we're really overwhelmed and overthinking, if we just leave those alone, eventually we will reset and our mood will lift back up again. It's how it works. Human nature, we cannot sustain a level of mood that is up here. Yeah. So if you see someone who seems happy all the time, I can promise you 100% they are not happy all the time, because they're human. And so in the same way that we can't sustain a mood up here all the time, the mood where we feel flat is also it's also not going to be sustained, and it will start to lift. So how do you break the brick wall of thought the times you don't realise you're doing it? No, you're right. And the thing is, when we're doing it, we don't realise, do we? Because why would anybody build a brick wall that's going to cut them off from everything? So we don't do it intentionally. And that's a really important point, because people then beat themselves up. Oh, I've done it again. And why am I doing this? And why am I doing? Because you're doing it because that's just what feels right at that time. It's part of survival. So please don't ever beat yourself up for it. If you find you have built that brick wall, we've all been there and we've all done it. So you see, the good thing about a wall is that it's like a temporary thing. So it will eventually, it's almost, let's think of it, it's a wall built out of not bricks, it's something else, something that eventually disintegrates, yeah? And it's like you start afresh. So when you have built this wall of overthinking, it's like if you stop building it and keep adding the bricks, eventually it will just deteriorate. So let's just say it's made out of quicksand, okay? So you can build it, this big wall, out of the sand, and keep going and keep going. And as long as you're throwing stuff onto it, it's going to keep going higher. The minute you stop throwing stuff onto it, it will start to sink slowly and disappear. And this is the thing that people don't realise. I think they've got to do something. They've got to knock it down. They've got to move it. No, it will drop by itself when you stop putting stuff on it. Dr. Bill Pettit is a mentor of mine who also explores, teaches, mentors people in the 3 principles. And one of the things that he describes it as, it's like if you think about a waterfall, okay? A waterfall with water coming down, it really fresh, clear water, okay? And that's just naturally how it works. That's like all of us. We've got that natural, clear level of thought like a waterfall. But then what we do is we throw a load of crap in there, a load of plastic, a load of rubbish, a load of toxins, and there's all our thoughts, okay? So that water is still running clear, but it's going to always be murky as long as we're throwing crap in it. Yeah? So how do we get that clear water back? Well, we stop throwing crap in it. Yeah? So it's about exploring through the principles, through how thought works, to stop throwing the rubbish in, because eventually it will run clear again. However, if you keep throwing crap in, it's going to keep feeling murky, if that makes sense. So yes. So it's not how do you break that wall down, it's how do you just stop layering it up in the first place, and how do you stop throwing stuff in that river so that eventually it just runs clear again. So I hope that helps. Yes, Justin, really good point. So Justin said, I guess the hardest part is waiting for that wall to disintegrate. It seems like it never will. Yeah, because in that moment while it's disintegrating and it's still there, your view and your vision is quite limited. So you're going to see things. There's an Einstein quote, and I can't remember the words properly off the top of my head, but it's something about not trying to fix a problem from the place where the problem started. So if you're waiting for that wall to disintegrate, Justin, that's not the time to start figuring out, oh, why did I do this in the first place? And how do I get rid of it? And I wish it would hurry up, because that's just going to make it bigger. That's just throwing more anxious thought on top. So yeah, you're absolutely right. And the key there, Justin, and this is where it gets easier for people, and it certainly did for me over time, is that's where it's about becoming comfortable with the discomfort. Because that period of time, you are right. If you've spent a lot of time trying to fight and avoid that discomfort of feeling like you're stuck, then it's going to come with some discomfort. But the more we get to see that actually even that discomfort is temporary and is also created through our thinking, because we're still experiencing that through thought, it becomes much, much easier. So if I give a quick example about that before I go, is like, some people really hate that feeling of adrenaline where they feel sick and they feel a bit lightheaded, and it's like, they go into a panic because they feel really awful. And that's just adrenaline surging through the body because you're telling your mind that you're in danger, so it goes into fight or flight. And yet there's people that go on roller coasters purely to get that feeling and sensation and love it and think it's hilarious. Yeah, it's the same thing happening in the body, the same feeling, but they just view it very differently. I think sometimes you have life situations outside of your control too, and sometimes your reaction of that is hard to change. Yeah, well, you're right. Stuff happens that is utterly crap, that's horrible, that we don't want. Absolutely. But again, we are only ever experiencing that through our thinking. There's stuff that we would wish wouldn't happen, but you're right, it's out of our control and things will happen. But we can experience things So, like, for example, I'm not saying that if somebody passes away, that you can choose to view that from a completely positive place. Of course you're not going to. You're going to feel sad, you're going to feel grief, you might feel anger. But it's about enabling yourself to realise that that's perfectly okay and part and parcel of it, but that it will not last forever. Okay. But you're absolutely right. So, okay then. Yeah, very true. Sometimes you just need to say, not my circus, not my monkeys. Yeah, one of the things, I did a post not so long ago, and again, I can't remember where I heard this one, but someone's saying, you know, when people worry about what other people think, it's like literally, and I say this sometimes to myself now, it's like, it's literally none of my business what other people think of me. Like, how dare I even try and work that out? It's none of my business. And that reminds me a bit of that. Okay, so I'm going to go now, but someone said here, what is BPD? Borderline personality disorder is what that is. I've worked with a lot of people with borderline personality disorder. I would just say, if your doctor has told you you've got it, then ask them what support they're going to put in place for you and how they're going to support you. The best therapy for that is DBT, dialectical behavioural therapy. So hopefully they will put you in touch with the right people. Okay, so I will leave it there. I said right at the beginning of this, I've got a free webinar about panic and anxiety next Monday at 9 p.m. in the evening, but there are only a certain number of people that can come on to do it because it's a different platform thing that I use, and it's about 50% full, so there's still about another 50 places left. So if you want to, have a look on my page and you'll see it there. Okay, take care everyone. Bye.